For example, a colleague or even a friend, how much they're earning is a big taboo. Now, Japan is struggling with the issue of credentialism.
田中さん、紙がありません。
Hey guys and gals, on Ask Japanese, it's Cathy Cat. You would like to work in the business world of Japan? Great. However, there are 5 taboos you need to know before you go and start working in Japanese businesses. But don't worry, I got you covered. Let's talk about them today. The Japanese business world might already be quite different to the business world in your country. Generally, when there are contracts, for example, between people or between companies, people usually aim for the future, meaning if things go well, let's work again together in the future. So those businessmen who only look for their profit, for short-term high profit, might actually not do so well. Yes, you might get what you want, but they'll never call you again. And sometimes, especially in Japanese countries and in Japanese business environments, if you really mess it up with one person big time, you don't get that chance again. So not short-term single profit, but long-term, all of us will be happy type of profit is a bit more appreciated. Number 1 is salary. Of course, in the business world, it's all about money. However, money is also a very sensitive topic. So asking, for example, a colleague or even a friend how much they're earning is a big taboo. If you go into a job interview and you're right at the job interview, also asking for your salary then is apparently a taboo. So, and once you enter the company, finding out from your colleagues how much they're earning in comparison to you, again, taboo. You don't do that. They will very reluctantly reply, if at all. Now, can you actually ask about your salary? Generally, you have to wait for the company to get back to you and tell you a certain amount, and then you can, maybe in a meeting or a similar thing, discuss whether you like that amount or not. But generally, straight out asking people is a no. You don't do that. And that's also, again, because working in the Japanese, business industry can be tied to money, gender, and hierarchy. And hierarchy is a real big one. It's not a secret that Japan is a man's world, meaning generally all CEO positions are occupied by men. Not all, but the majority. And since hierarchy is so important, which is generally tied to age, it means that the average CEO in Japan is around 62 years old, which makes them older than the average CEO in other countries. For example, one of the youngest CEOs in Japan is 42 years old, while abroad we have very, very young CEOs that start in their 20s. Now, there's also a glass ceiling that's not even made out of glass. It's officially often females can be told that because they're women, they can't do this or that, or they have to marry and get kids and things like that. So the business world is still very conservative and very male-dominated, despite all the changes that are currently in place. So what might happen is if you have a CEO that's quite older, all the people working under him have to also lift him up a little bit. That is tied to hierarchy, meaning again, the senpai-kohai system that you might know from anime in school, where the younger ones support the older one and the older one supports the younger one, that also happens in a work environment. That can happen, for example, that if the boss goes for drinks, all the other people will try and make the boss feel good, refill his drinks, make sure they order for him, make sure to butter him up real good while they're going out for drinks, and the other workers cannot leave until the boss wants to leave. Things like that. Yes, some of these traditions are changing, but generally it's a lot about buttering up the boss. In Japan, they call it taiko mochi. You like the taiko drums. So the one who's hitting the taiko drum the most for the boss will definitely stand out in a positive way. So yeah, that is still a thing. And again, the older you get, the more in salary you generally tend to get. And that brings us back to the topic of salary and hierarchy again. The longer some person stays in their job, the more important they will get in the company and the more they will earn. NEXT! Number 2, educational background. Now, actually, that's a topic you shouldn't be asking too much about. I know some Japanese people love asking about these kind of things, but some people can feel very uncomfortable. Now, Japan is struggling with the issue of credentialism. Credentialism. Credentialism is very important in Japan, meaning what university did you get to? It can even start as early as in what elementary school did you go to? Did it help you to a better middle school, to a better prestigious high school, to then get into a prestigious university? These kind of things are very important still in Japan. So for example, Todai, the Japanese university here, Tokyo University, is seen as a very high standard university. So if your child gets into that university, you are prestigious, your family is prestigious, you made it, it's kind of one of those things. And some people actually have a educational background complex. Some people actually have a gakudeki complex, meaning they didn't make it into the right university or the right school, and it kind of hangs back later to them in life because they didn't make it in those kind of environments. So asking too much about someone's educational background could also end up hurting them. For example, some people will for several years just apply to get into the right university. So for example, in order to get into Todai, the Tokyo University, some people will spend 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or even more just trying to pass the really harsh entrance exams, because if you have that certificate in your hand saying you made it to Todai, that means it opens a lot of doors in your future career for you. So it's not so much what you do after university, it's often quite a lot in Japan that which university you went to decides your future career. What really surprised me in Japan is just how many Japanese people decide to go to university. Almost anyone I know went to university or at least some kind of college after school. Again, that ties into your salary in the future. If you make it into higher education in the future, you also earn better. And if you don't have higher education, people might almost feel like you dropped out a little bit. So meaning just having a high school degree shows that, why didn't you continue studying? People will ask you this. So you can also get made feel very uncomfortable if you did not go to university. First time I came to Japan, same thing. People were like, why did you not go to university? And I was like, not everyone goes to university. But then later on when I went to university, people would speak totally different with me when they knew I've made it at a university in the UK and got 2 master's degrees. They were then like, oh, great, wonderful. So it does make a big change if you've been to a university, and if you're a foreigner who wants to come and work in Japan, definitely get that degree. Definitely get it. I mean, some people are nowadays managing to somehow make it in Japan without degrees, but it will affect if you get a visa, how long you get a visa, and in the future as well, if a company will keep you on, all of this will definitely affect your future. So if you want to make it in the business industry in Japan, if you want to make it in business here, get yourself that degree before you come.
しばらくお待ちください。
Now, you might feel passionate about baseball and soccer, but these are topics that you need to be very careful when you're talking about those at work, in the office, and similar. That is because even in Japan, other people are just as passionate about their teams. Baseball and soccer are those 2 sports where people will have very strong feelings towards their teams and such. Now, on that note, you might be going out for drinks with your colleagues, and maybe you're into another team, and maybe your team is on the other side and from everyone else. And if they won, it just won't look good. It just won't look good if you go like, yes, I'm glad my team won. That kind of stuff will look very bad. Also, if you maybe cheered halfway through for the team that your boss or your colleagues like, but you're like, that player is no good and that one wasn't good, that might also look bad on you. So if you make other people on the table when you're going out for drinks feel really bad about the team that they feel so passionate about, some people had the bad experience that their salary has somehow changed after that. I heard that and was like, wow. So yes, ideally what I've actually heard some people are doing when they know what team and player their boss likes, the taikomochi, remember the ones with the drums? They're actually that clever and calculative that they look up the team, look up the players, and watch the games just to have better communication, washing each other's hand, better communication with the higher ups so they can talk with them about what they are passionate about, cheer them on, or like make them feel good about certain sport events. And that, again, makes you a little bit better in the eyes of the boss, and you might, get a little bit into favor. So that's why talking about sports can be a very sensitive topic. You don't really want to say the wrong thing or start with the wrong tone, even if it's in a casual after work drinks environment, or maybe especially there because the tongues are a little bit more loose. So those kind of things, watch out for that one and maybe read up a little bit before you actually start saying something about it.
準備はいいですか?
Number 4, here. Remember how we talked about the older generation being in charge of most of the business in Japan? Now, you can probably see why the older male generation might have an issue with the topic of hair, or loss of hair, or thinning hair, similar things like that. Do never, ever bring that topic up in the wrong way, even to some of your other colleagues who might not have that problem. It's a topic that some people can get very touchy about, and things can get very wrong, even by accident, even if you don't mean to, because some people have just some hair loss, baldness, PTSD.
よろしくお願いします。
カティさん、これコピーしてくれたまえ。
あ、わかりました田中さん。じゃあ行ってきます。田中さん、紙がありません。
Number 5, harassment. Now, with all this amount of power and hierarchy in the office, often different types of harassment are born. So there is, for example, pawahara, and there can also be sekahara, which is a type of harassment you will get for speaking up about harassment that happens in the office and such. Japan is changing, and it's trying to be better by addressing these different types of harassment, and hopefully these changes will come up and it will be easier for people to work in the office without these types of harassment. We actually made a video just on different types of harassment that is on our channel, so if you're curious about what types of harassment there are and you might accidentally already be doing, be sure to check that one out. The company in Japan can work like a family, meaning, the highest person, the boss and stuff is also, looking after the people under him, and the people under him have to, show their respect for him, treating them in a certain way. But because some people can take it too far in certain situations, these new types of harassment can be born in the office. Since people are working in a very close environment together for prolonged hours, there's also certain stress and irritation that can then come up in these types of environments. Like I said, Japan is changing. Japan is trying to be better, address and help about these issues, but they still do exist. So be careful about speaking up about it is a thing that will have to be done, and it's good that younger people are now speaking up about certain types of harassment, but again, be careful how you talk about it, who you talk about it, and how you address it in the office. Maybe take it straight to actually HR or similar things like that, or maybe talk with a senpai about it first, and so you can work through it. Again, that's a very sensitive topic, and generally with the very old companies, the hierarchy is very strong still, while some of the newer companies are breaking up these rules that are in place and trying to give the whole thing a little bit of a revolution so more people have fun working. At this point in time, there's still some cliche or traditional things. For example, even though teleworking right now is pushed all over the world, work from home, in Japan, the old cliche is still that the boss wants to see his workers working, meaning people still have to come into the office even though they might be able to do their work from home, just because that's the way it's always been and we like it to continue like that. Again, like I said, changes are coming. Hopefully they're coming soon, so everyone has a smoother and more fun work environment. So these were 5 taboos when talking in the business world here in Japan. Like I said, things are changing, hopefully for the better in the future of Japan, but just watch out for these topics. Maybe first see how to address the room. One thing I can really recommend you guys is read the room. Many things in Japan are spoken between the lines. You get them from very subtle reactions. So for example, if you ask a colleague, what their salary is and they go, that's not a, I didn't understand it. That's a, that's a bit inappropriate. And I'm just going to pretend I didn't hear you ask this question. So things like that, be careful to watch out for your colleagues. And compared to many Western societies, it's a lot for the harmony of the group. If you stand out as the one who doesn't care about the harmony of the group, it will look bad on you. So watch out for that. And watch out for what you're going to say about the common topics that we talked about earlier. Hopefully you get a good senpai in your company, one who's been working in the job maybe a year longer or more than you, who'll help you through these little traps and pitfalls that you can get. If you would like to know more about this topic, we'd love to make another video. So let us know in the comments down below, or just give us a big like so we know this interests you. I hope you could take something useful away from this video. We're going to make more videos from Turkey coming out to you, no matter where in the world you are. So be sure to be subscribed, hit the notification bell, and I'll catch you soon for more stuff on Ask Japanese. Bye!